Mr. President, I rise today in a colloquy with my colleagues. It's a bipartisan bill we've been working on, but it's one of the most important pieces of legislation that we have before us today. And it basically, 16,000 retired miners and their widows are counting on this to be done. And if we don't do it by the end of the year, we're going to have 16,000 miners lose their health care benefits. At the end of this year, we'll have another 3,500 miners that'll lose their health care in March of next year, and another 3,500 will lose it by July. So 23,000 miners' lives are at stake. This is a piece of legislation that fulfills the commitment and promise we made starting back to 1946, 1950, 1974, 90, 92, 93, and 2006. So basically, we as a government, we as lawmakers here have understood the value of the coal that's been produced by the coal miners of America United Mine Workers, and this is to fulfill the promise that we made back in 1946 for what they had done from the start of the century, early 1900s, providing the energy in a very difficult, tough way, and then basically being able to guarantee a pension and a retirement plan to keep this country moving forward. That's what this is about. And if we don't fulfill this promise to the people who've given us the life we have and the superpower that we live in, the freedoms that we enjoy, and I would say, God help us all. With that, I have my colleagues are here that understand these people, understand how wonderful they are, the hard work they provided, the mine workers all over this country. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and turn to my good friend from Ohio, Senator Brown.
Thank you, Mike. Thanks. Virginia, and thank his colleague also, Senator Capito, for their terrific
Senator
work.
From Ohio.
Thank you, Mr. President. I last week joined Senator Manchin, Senator Capito, and others to speak to hundreds of coal miners rallying on the lawn right outside the Capitol. It was an oppressively hot day. The heat and humidity seemed to bother them not at all. They're used to working in mines and working in some of the hardest and sometimes less safe conditions of anyone in this country. One of the things that impressed me most at the beginning of this rally, when President Cecil Roberts, the president of the UMWA, stood up and asked at the beginning of his remarks, how many of you are veterans? And a huge number of mine workers put their hands up. He then asked about family members and World War II veterans. And you think about these mine workers, some of them stayed in the mines and continued to mine coal to win our wars and to power our defense plants and power our homes and our commercial establishments and everything else. So many of them went off to war. And as if we don't owe them for the work they've done in the mines and the promises that Senator Manchin mentioned, we also owe so many of them for serving our country the way that they did. This is about retirement security. In my state alone, 6,800 Ohioans are covered and will be betrayed if we don't do our work, if this Senate doesn't do its job. If Congress fails to act, retired miners lose their health care this year, and the pension plans could fail as early as 2017. This is retirement security, these miners' workforce security they fought for, security they sacrificed raises in their own health for. And one of the things that Senator Manchin and Senator Capito and I understand that, frankly, a whole lot of senators don't, is when unions bargain, sit down at the bargaining table, they often, almost always, give up raises today for retirement security in the future. And we call these legacy costs. I have heard, during the auto rescue, I heard a number of my colleagues complain about the legacy costs that afflict, in their word, the United Auto Workers. It's the same thing here. I mean, these are workers that, rather than take more pay now, they say, okay, we'll forego some of these raises and we'll put this money to guarantee and ensure our futures. So then they aren't wards of the state. They're not living off taxpayers. They're living off their own wealth they created, invested, so that they will have health insurance and so that they will have pensions when they retire. That's good for the country, not bad for the country. But a number of anti-union members in this Senate, and I would say in the House, where Senator Capito and I used to serve, don't really understand that. They've earned this health care. They've earned these retirement payments. They've been promised to them. These workers have more than held up their end of the bargain. I wanted to tell a couple stories and turn it to Senator Capito. As the two West Virginia senators, and they have more mine workers in the state than I do, but it's a major part of our state and a major part of the southeast quadrant of Ohio. I've talked to some of these workers, Ohioans like Norm Skinner and Dave Dilley and Babe Urtis. I first met Norm in March. I've known Babe Urtis for years. I appreciate the work Senator Warner's done, who's joining us too. Norm's a veteran. He started working as a miner in what became Peabody Coal 40 years ago. He worked 22 years. He retired in September of '94. For every one of those years, he earned and he contributed to his retiree health care plan and his pension plan. 60% of his colleagues, he told me, at the mine have died of cancer because of the chemicals. Norm has been lucky, but after putting in decades in that mine, he's in danger of losing that health care that's kept him alive. We know how to fix this. This block, if you will, seems to be down at the end of the hall in the majority leader's office. We would get a strong majority because of the work of Senator Capito and Senator Manchin and Senator Warner and others. We would get a strong majority of members of the Senate to pass this if we could get it up for a floor vote. We must mark this bill up in the committee that Senator Warner and I sit on, the Finance Committee. I would hope this week. For whatever reason, it's pushed back to next week. Senator Manchin and I have talked about, we hope this isn't a slow walk to delay it through the end of the year, because this Senate has not been in session much this year. We're not doing the work we should. This is absolutely mandatory that Senate Finance move on it next week with Senator Casey on that committee, who's also been supportive, and it's time we do that. So Senator Manchin, thank you for your work. Senator Capito and Senator Warner, thank you for your work on such an important issue for our country.
Thank you, Senator Brown. And at this time, I'd like to, Mr. President, call on my colleague for this colloquy, Senator Capito from West Virginia.
The senator from West Virginia.
Thank you, Mr. President, and I want to thank my fellow senator from the state of West Virginia for his lead on this, and I'm happy to be his primary co-sponsor. I want to thank Senator Brown. He brings a lot of passion. I got to follow him the other day when we were at the rally. He's a hard act to follow. And Senator Warner, certainly your state of Virginia in the southwest portion right there, where you're lucky enough to be really close to West Virginia, is going to feel a lot of this. I think Senator Brown really stated it, something of the rally that we saw last week. It was a very hot day, and it was there were thousands of miners and families that were there, and we all went for the show of hands. Senator Portman's here now. Let's have a show of hands of those from Ohio. Let's have a show of those from West Virginia. And it was really spread throughout the country. It wasn't just, or throughout the eastern part of the country. It wasn't just one state or the other. And everyone that I shook hands with, I asked, is this personally affecting you? And it was amazing to me that most of the people I talked to, it personally affected them. And many of them are retired. They're not spring chickens, as a lot of us are not. And they were willing to weather a really long bus ride, a really hot day, to stand in arm in brother and sisterhood for something that we all believe in, and that we are approaching a critical deadline. So as has been said before, these are the workers who have powered our nation, who work hard, who my kids have gone to school with their grandchildren. We go to church with many of them. I mean, it's in a small state like ours, Senator Manchin and I certainly know many of the folks and of the faces that we saw that day and the ones that are affected by this. So we can't leave them in the lurch. This is where we are. We hear the statistics, 22,000, and some of the statistics are a little bit different, but could be losing their health care here in the next 3 months. The pension plan that provides benefits to over 90,000 current retirees could become insolvent. I mean, we have a fix. Senator Portman and I have talked a lot about this because we have those adjoining parts of our states that are very much affected. And we've worked hard to bring this fix and get it to the point at which we think and we are assured that the vote will come through the Finance Committee, which Senator Portman serves on. And so I look forward to that, even though disappointedly it was pushed back a week. We still are fighting the fight. The war on coal in our state has resulted really in thousands of lost jobs. And 6 of our counties are in a deep depression. We were at a local hearing in Morgantown where our state economist said that 6 of our counties are in a very severe depression. A lot of these counties are where a lot of these folks live. And these counties and communities across our state, the situation, if we don't do something, is going to get even worse. This is not a partisan issue. We've got Republicans and Democrats here. I would say it's more of a regional issue than a partisan issue. We're working with Chairman Hatch to get this bill marked up in the Finance Committee. And hopefully that will get us the next step that we need, which is the big step, which is to get it across the floor here in the halls of the United States Senate. So, you know, with the hardworking men and women of Appalachia, with the leadership that Senator Manchin has shown on this, and many of us here working together in this many different ways that we can affect the votes of our colleagues. Somebody said to me, well, what's going to make the difference? You know, you're on that side of the aisle where maybe there are a lot of folks that can't see why we should vote for this. And, you know, what I would implore them to do is look at the human faces of the people that are affected here. These are people, most of them worked hard their whole lives. Many of them have health issues, severe health issues. Many of them are living on limited resources. And this really just kind of kicks the stool out from under their entire family. So I join with everybody here today to make that real difference that we need to make, and we'll keep the fight going here as we move through the next several weeks and months. Thank you.
I want to thank my colleague, my friend, and this is definitely a bipartisan piece of legislation. We just need a little bit more help, but we're going to get there. Let me just paint the picture very quickly for everybody what we're talking about. The energy from this young country in the early 1900s, the energy was needed to build a country into the Industrial Revolution, if you will. Then we had World War I, and we had World War II back to back. We needed the domestic energy in order to defend ourselves. From 1900 to 1946, these were people that would go down into the mines. They would work hard. They would provide the resources we needed to win the wars, to build the Industrial Revolution, to build the middle class. They got no pensions and no benefits, and I'll give you one personal story. 1927, there was a young man who had 4 children, and his wife was expecting her 5th. Christmas time, 1927. If you've ever heard the song 16 Tons, and what do you get? Another day older and deeper in debt. Tennessee Ernie Ford wrote that song. I owe my soul to the company store. That was the fact. That was the absolute truth. At the end of the day, with a paycheck at the end of the week, there was nothing left. They owed their soul to the company store. There was no money to take care of your family. There was no pension to rely on, no retirement plan. There was no health care as far as giving you the health care that you would need to stay healthy and your family. This is what happened. A young man in 1927 was talking to other people saying, we've got to do something. We can't continue to carry on life. We can't live this way. Can't take care of our family, can't take care of ourselves. We're not getting ahead at all. That night, Christmas Eve, he was thrown out of his house. All his furniture was thrown in the middle of the road. Everything, all 4 kids. And the expectant mother was thrown out. That person's name was Joe Manchin Sr. When you think about the commitment they made to our country and the effort, that was my grandfather. And you think about what they were willing to do and sacrifice everything for this country. And we didn't get a piece of legislation until 1946, and President Harry S. Truman, signed an agreement, the Krug-Lewis Agreement, because it was so important after the war to keep the economy going. And without the miners that were providing the product, the coal that fired this nation, we wouldn't have been able to build the economic might. We would not be the superpower of the day. We would not. And people forget that. And I think it sets the stage of who we are, what we're fighting for. This is a commitment that we owe. This is a responsibility that we have. And I thank all of my colleagues who are here, all the colleagues that are supporting this. We have 46 Democrats supporting this, and we have a minimum of 8, possibly more of our Republican friends that are supporting it also. We need a few more, and that's what we're asking for, and we think we will be able to get that help and get that commitment for the markup. I wish it would have been done this week. It wasn't. With that, I want to recognize my good friend from Virginia, a former governor that we served together. He worked in the coal fields. We've met many times in the coal fields. These are the greatest people, the most patriotic people that you've ever met. A coal miner is usually a veteran. They mine the coal that made the steel that built the country we have today. They give them their blood and sweat and tears and hard work. So with that, I want to turn it over to my good friend from Virginia who knows these people all so well, Senator Warner.
Thank you, Mr. President. And I want to start, obviously, by echoing what Senator Brown and Senator Capito and others have said. And thank you, my friend, the senator from West Virginia, for continuing to wage this fight. It feels a little bit like deja vu all over again. We have been down here time and time and time again to simply reinforce the case that the senator from West Virginia just went through in terms of history. I think it's sometimes interesting that I'm sure the senator from West Virginia did it earlier than I, but it was early 90s, the first time I went underground. And to see the working conditions that miners across this country, even with advances in technology and 20th century, 21st century, still endure. It's hard work. It's gritty work. Many of the miners who spent years working underground come out with black lung, other illnesses. Their life expectancy is much shorter than so many other jobs. The senator from West Virginia has already gone through at some length our historic commitment to these miners. Started with President Truman, was renewed a variety of times, Democrats and Republicans alike. And through this past year, again, because of the senator from West Virginia and those of us who tried to help, and his state's got the most, probably Kentucky's got the second most, Virginia's got about 10,000 folks that are affected. We did finally force, and I want to thank the chairman and ranking member of the Finance Committee, Senator Hatch and Senator Wyden, we did have the hearing. And families came in, and all they said to us was, keep your promise. The United States of America said, we're going to honor this commitment to make sure that your pension benefits and your health care benefits are honored. And the remarkable thing here is there are many folks, including myself, who are greatly concerned about our debt and deficits. So how are we going to pay for this? We've even identified source of funding that is industry generated. So any of the typical, well, maybe not now, or what if, or how does this happen? All of those issues have been addressed. The Miners Protection Act that the Finance Committee held a hearing on, and miners from Southwest Virginia came in, a couple folks from Grundy, a couple folks from Wise, and very close to the state of West Virginia, close to Ohio. Folks whose lives were going to be dramatically affected if these benefits, these health care benefits and then pension benefits are taken away. And disproportionately, as the senator from West Virginia has repeatedly said, the vast majority of these individuals, candidly, are not former miners, but they're the widows. Because so many folks have passed that are now widows that depend upon these benefits that in many ways are still the lifeblood of communities that have been hard hit by the changing nature of power generation, by government regulation, by a host of other things. So last week, in that incredibly warm day, my good friend, the senator from Ohio, and I were there speaking to miners from all across the region and others who were supportive of the cause. And the question I got as I walked through the crowd was, are you guys going to keep your word? Not Democrat, Republican, not particulars of the bill. Are you going to keep your word that this country made to the coal miners and their beneficiaries, that their pension and health care benefits are going to be honored? So we are going to be tested on this, at least in terms of the next step. My hope and expectations have been, as a member of the Finance Committee, and my friend, Senator from Ohio, member of the Finance Committee, and in this case, we have the support of the chairman and the ranking member, that we would mark up this legislation, that we wouldn't add all kinds of extraneous other things that would take us off course or take us down into some other briar patch, but that we would honor this commitment on the UMWA, health, and pension benefits. Well, as things often happen here, it got delayed. But I, for one, don't believe, even if we get our CR done, we get Zika done, that the Finance Committee should leave town without having this markup. That commitment was made earlier in the year. I went through a whole group of folks, not just from Virginia, but from West Virginia, Ohio, Pennsylvania, and Kentucky, and said, yes, I believe we're going to at least get the next step done and get this bill marked up out of Finance Committee, and that it should be then not just got out of Finance Committee, it's actually got to be acted upon here on the floor of the Senate. We've all come and gone through the facts and the details on the variety of times that we have spoke to this issue on the floor. My appeal, Mr. President, is that to my friends, the chair and ranking member of the Finance Committee, that this date on the 21st does not slip again. I know in that committee markup we will have the votes. We need to get that bill reported out. We need to get it acted on before the end of the year, because as the senator from West Virginia has so relentlessly continued to make the point, this is not something that we can kick the can on anymore. People start losing these benefits that their lives depend upon at the end of calendar year 2016. So I say to my friend from West Virginia and my friend, Senator from Ohio, we are on this together. It is bipartisan. There aren't enough things that are done bipartisan here. I thank my friend from West Virginia for being relentless on this issue. I thank my friend, the senator from Ohio, who's sometimes an issue that looks like it's stacking up more one side than the other. His leadership on this as well. I tell you, I think we owe it to those miners and the families that depend upon these benefits that we keep our word, keep the word we told them we were going to keep back when we held the hearing, keep the word that all of us said to the senator, to the miners and others who rallied last week in the middle of that heat. We do our job next Wednesday. We'll be able to keep our word, bring this bill to the floor, and get it passed. So with that, Mr. President, I thank the senator from West Virginia and yield back my time to him.
Thank you, Senator, and I appreciate so much the support, and he does know the miners so well because we join in the Southwest, and his Southwest miners and my West Virginia miners work very well together. With that being said, we're very proud to have our neighbors and friends from Ohio, and Senator Portman has been a dear friend and a colleague, and he knows the mine workers of the Southeast, where most of them have congregated and where they really mine the coal, along with Southwest Virginia again. We're very proud of that. So, Senator Portman, we appreciate your being part of this colloquy.
Well, first, I want to thank my colleague from West Virginia for holding this colloquy today, and I enjoyed listening to his colleague from West Virginia talk about it, Senator Capito, and I know Senator Brown was here. Senator Warner from Virginia was out there at the rally just before me. I get to follow him again. And what I said the other day when we were at the rally was the fact that this is not a partisan issue. This is one where you got Republicans and Democrats coming together to identify a real problem. 100,000 miners having their pensions endangered, and 20,000 miners potentially losing their health care at the end of this year. Now, that's a really urgent problem for them. And he did a good job today talking about some of these issues. I loved when Senator Manchin talked about the fact that this country was built on an energy economy that included coal. And I will tell you, we have mined 4 million tons of coal in Ohio. And we're still a state and a country that depends on coal for our electricity. And in Ohio, it's about 58% of us who turn on a light when we go home get our electricity from coal. So it's incredibly important for our economy and has built this country in effect and has given us in Ohio the ability, frankly, to attract a lot of industry because we have had relatively low energy prices, stable energy prices. So this is about telling these miners that for years and years have been doing the hard work, playing by the rules, doing exactly what they're supposed to do, that we're not going to let them down. That's all this is about. And it's just not fair to pull the plug after all these years. And as was noted earlier, having talked to a lot of these miners, some of them are in poor health. And part of the reason they're in poor health is because they were in the coal mines for many years. And there are higher rates of cancer, for instance, among some of these miners. And there are a lot of widows because some of the spouses have moved on. And so this is about keeping true to our commitment and our promise. I do think that we are going to have this committee vote a week from today. I'm told it was pushed back from today to a week from today because the Congressional Budget Office had not done the score yet, what this costs. Okay, that's fine, but let's be darn sure that we do not leave town to go back in October without addressing this issue. And that's something that I'm going to insist on, as will my other colleagues. I've heard from them today. I got a commitment on this. I got a commitment from the leadership, from the chairman, who I know is good to his commitments, and we got to be darn sure that we do the right thing for these miners. We had a hearing on it. We had people come forward and talk about the specifics of it. I will tell you, I know some people have differences of opinion on the fiscal impact of this. As a person who is a fiscal conservative and proud of that, I will tell you the alternative to this is that these plans could potentially go insolvent, and PBGC, which is the government program that backs all these up, the Pension Benefit Guaranty Corporation, would then be in deep trouble because this is the second biggest multi-employer plan that could be in trouble. That could result in taxpayers having to pick up the tab in a much, much more significant way. So the actuaries have looked at our plan. They believe that the way we do it, it is paid for. They believe that this will enable us to get through this period of time where we've got a tough issue with so many companies going bankrupt. The senator from West Virginia, Senator Manchin, and I have talked a lot about the underlying problem here, which is there are a lot of people who are trying to do away with coal, and the so-called war on coal is leading to some of these bankruptcies of these companies and some of these pension problems. That's part of the issue, too. So the federal government also has played a role here, and we need to recognize that as well. So I'm going to thank my colleagues for coming out on the floor today. I want to say that we look forward to the opportunity to debate and to discuss this issue in committee a week from today to get a strong vote, and let's make it a strong bipartisan vote. And let's be sure that it comes to this floor with that kind of support and goes over to the House, and we can get something done here to help those people who did work hard and played by the rules and deserves now for us here in the United States Congress to look out for them. I thank my colleague, and I yield back to him.
Thank you, Thank you, my friend from Ohio, Senator Portman. Let me just say in wrapping up, there's some concern and there's talk about, where we're concerned about the United Mine Workers, which are all union miners, and non-union miners. I'm as concerned about all miners. But the agreement, and if you think back to 1946, about anybody and everybody who worked in the mines belonged to United Mine Workers of America. That's the agreement that was made to stop a strike from happening, to basically get people back to work to keep the country moving forward. And we ratified that again. We ratified it in 1974. We did it in 1990, 92, 93, and 2006. And it has the hand seal stamp of basically the President of the United States. And I'm saying, if we can't keep that commitment, if we won't fulfill that promise, and people think that basically that everybody is talking about, well, we're going to subsidize this. It's the federal government's guarantee. It was a guarantee that the coal that was mined, that the mine operators would pay into the pension plan. Then through bankruptcy courts, that evaporates. If I ask consent just to finish up, just to wrap up 1 minute, Mr. President. Okay.
Has already exceeded the time that it was supposed to go.
If I can just follow up, just wrap up 1 minute, sir.
Go.
Thank you. Thank you.
Without objection.
Thank you, my friend. With that being said, you can see it's bipartisan. We're asking for that. We've had a commitment. We've been gone for 9 weeks. 9 weeks, and the only thing we're asking for before we leave on the 21st next, this has to be brought out of the Finance Committee. That's what we're asking for. That's what was promised. So I would hope that all of my colleagues will fulfill that promise that was made to all of us and to the 16,000, to the 102,000 miners that have been depending on this. So with that, I want to say thank you all. I appreciate it very much and would hope that this body will rise to the occasion to take care of the people we made the promise to, United Mine Workers of America. Thank you, Mr. President.